Hello, all you ghouls and goblins, and welcome to Basic Public Speaking. I am your Professor Christy Thomas, and this is week 11 of our course. Not only is it week 11, it's also Halloween week, which I was feeling super festive and thought I'd play with makeup for these videos. This week is fun because you have the storytelling mini speech to do this week. And before I get into the meat of the requirements for the speech, I want to preface it with saying there is no outline due, folks. No outline due, and you have until 11:30, November 1st, which is Sunday, to get the speech turned in to me. Okay, with that being said, there's also no time limit, but I really ask of you to at least give me a minute of storytelling, and I really want you to get into the story when you're talking to me. Okay, let's talk about the umbrella topic of this speech, shall we? It's Halloween, horror, supernatural, thriller, sci-fi, funness. Now, what do I mean? You don't have to pick something that is straight horror and gore. You can expand. Now, this can involve movies and actors and directors and books and films and traditions and both historical, local, family traditions. This can also involve conspiracy theories or treats or costumes or makeup or trying to think what else would fall underneath this wonderful world here. Decorating. Let's get into it, shall we? So, underneath this world, like I said, you can use films or television shows, and it doesn't have to be straight horror. So, you can talk about films that are scary, or maybe you want to compare original, if there's remakes of films, like a lot of the Universal classic monster films, like The Mummy and The Wolfman and Dracula and Frankenstein have been redone. So perhaps you want to do a comparison, or perhaps you want to talk about films that are based off books. Harry Potter films, they're based off books. There's the Twilight series, there's Dracula and Frankenstein, and there are Interview with a Vampire, and I'm going to keep going here and see what I can pull out of my magical world. All of those are based, so maybe you want to do a comparison of the film to the book. Maybe you want to talk about franchises. What do I mean by this? The Halloween films are a franchise. Nightmare on Elm Street, the Chucky films, the Friday the 13th films, the Ginger Snaps films. The films that have multiple talk about Halloween films too. The film Halloween. There's been so many remakes, directors, and now there's a new remake of the original with characters. So like maybe you want to do a comparison of all the different timelines, or you can talk about the timelines of the films. Some horror franchises have a lot of films under their belt, like the Evil Dead films, Freddy films and stuff like that. So maybe you want to talk about the timeline. You want to make up your own chronological timeline based, okay, in this franchise there are 6 films. Now we learned the history of this character in film 3, and then we found out how this character, what happened to them in film 2. So then you create your own timeline based off the entire franchise. Okay, wonderful, fabulous. Perhaps you want to talk about specific directors. Tim Burton, Wes Craven, George Romero, Alfred Hitchcock, Rob Zombie. These are all pretty big in the Halloween horror supernatural world. So or actors maybe that fall in these films, like Johnny Depp. He is a master of disguise. He's in a lot of Tim Burton films, and he's played in a lot of characters or voice characters in horror-themed films. Along with that, you can also talk about, before I move on, maybe you want to go a different route and talk about the perspective from maybe the the star of the film, like the perspective of Jason or Freddy himself. Or even go, if you want to go with like a Disney film, talk about the perspective from the villain, like Maleficent or the Evil Queen or Jafar or Scar. You want to talk about it from their point of view. Give it kind of a new, fresh perspective. You can also talk about, let's see, we talk television series. There's television series, you know, Supernatural and The Vampire Diaries and the originals and The Witches of Eastwick and Charmed and Penny, I think I said Penny Dreadful, you know, supernatural based shows. And there's like X-Files and Unsolved Mysteries, and there's murder mystery shows and all that stuff. That all falls underneath that realm too. Then there's shows like on Sci-Fi and History Channel and a few other channels that like they discuss moments in time of history, of just different things. So you can discuss those shows too. They fall underneath that world. So there's movies, and then there's films, and then there's books, and then there's comic books and graphic novels, and maybe some are more horror, Halloween based. All right, let's talk about traditions. Maybe you want to talk about how Halloween evolved, how it began to what it is now, or specific traditions within, you know, the act of trick-or-treating. How we came to it be, you know, carving pumpkins, dressing up in costume, or maybe there's just traditions within your family itself that you do. Maybe you go pumpkin picking or apple picking, something that's very fall on Halloween that you always do. Maybe you didn't get to do it this year, but traditionally you would get to do these things with your family. Maybe you go to Disney World every year to see the Halloween, you know, the Halloween show there. And there's also a lot of movies too that you can discuss that aren't like scary horror, you know, like the Hocus Pocus, Halloween Town, Addams Family films, Casper, Ghostbuster films, and then there was remake, and there's going to be another remake, you know, there was a Ghostbusters animated show. So you see where I'm going with here. And then animated series, there's like Gravity Falls and Big City Greens. I say this, my kids watch those, and there's mysteries that they talk about. So that definitely falls under this, guys, ladies and gentlemen. So we can talk about traditions. You can talk about urban legends that we all know, you know, Bloody Mary or Chupacabra or Bigfoot or this or that. Then maybe there's some that's like more centered about where you live that you could talk about, or maybe ones that like your family talk about or bring up, campfire stories if you would, or maybe there's ghost stories. There could be ghost stories that we all know, or it could be ghost stories that you have had encounters with, or you have a family member that's talked about it. Ghost stories, urban legends. Oh, treats. You could talk about your favorite, like, treat that you like to eat, or your favorite treat when you go trick-or-treating. Like, sometimes the popcorn balls people used to give out. I love Reese's peanut butter cups. Little tidbit of weird information about me. I like to pop them in the fridge and get them nice and cool and chomp on them. Anywho, maybe you talk about your favorite treats, or maybe you like to make treats. Maybe you make special, like, Halloween cupcakes that look like monsters, or a special cake, or, you know, some kind of treat that you make specifically in the fall or more for Halloween, like Chex Mix or Muddy Buddies, you know, something here. Or maybe you want to talk to us about costumes, how to make a really cool costume, or maybe one of your past really cool costumes, or maybe if you did with a couple, or maybe if you did it with a group, or maybe one from childhood, or maybe you want to show us some really fun Halloween makeup. That would be awesome too. Edition. You don't have to have visual aids for this speech, but if you want to, that's cool too. I'm a big fan of visual aids, guys, ladies and gentlemen. So you can discuss, you know, makeups and costumes of past or of present, or maybe what you're going to do this year, you know. So we talked about treats, and you can talk about traditions, the history of Halloween, the history of the ceremonies, the history of all of, you know, how it came to be, different things you've done, or maybe you have done trunk or treats with a committee or a group, or I know a lot of churches do trunk or treats. Maybe you've participated in that, and maybe you could tell us about like a really cool way you decorated up for the trunk or treat, if you were the one giving out candy, or if you've helped. Maybe you've worked in haunted houses. Oh, you can also talk about haunted places across the United States. That's pretty cool too. We have quite a few here in Kentucky. There's one in Louisville, the Waverly Sanitarium. It is so creepy and cool, guys. I went there years and years ago in the daytime. I very much love to go and check it out again at night, like on the real tour. I was doing a video shoot there. But you could talk about haunted places. There's tons in Ohio, Salem, Massachusetts, New Orleans. Hello, let's just open up the door. There it is, ladies and gentlemen. Perhaps you want to talk about historical references to witches, or witches films. There's so many films. Hocus Pocus is about witches. The Witches of East, which is an older film, but then I think they had a TV show too. Don't quote me on that. Or maybe talk about how we evolved from the historical figure of a witch to why now they are shown all green-faced with the wart on the nose and the pointy hat. There's a plethora. You could also talk about Egyptian curses. You could talk about conspiracy theories. You can talk about ancient aliens. Do you see where I'm going with here? There's just a huge umbrella here of ideas for you to choose from. What I'm really looking for you here is to find something that gives you a passion, your spooky passion, and tell me a story and really get into the story. Like, obviously, I enjoy Halloween. I'm really getting into this, just the explanation of it here. Sorry, guys. I'm like shifting around and my camera's like, whoa. Anywho, really get into it, folks. I want to see the passion. That's what I love so much about these storytelling speeches. It's a way for you to find something. I give you such a big umbrella topic, and to see the passion come through in you is fabulous. So we talked about all the different, there's just so much more. Again, I just wanted to kind of fall underneath that umbrella of Halloween and horror. An old cartoon show, Courage the Cowardly Dog. That falls under it, with Billy and Mandy. Mandy and Billy. Billy and Mandy, I think that's what it was called. Anywho, if it falls under the Halloween, the horror, thriller, sci-fi, supernatural, urban legend, tradition, historical, you can talk about historical figures too that fall underneath this realm. The Countess Elizabeth Bathory, the character who influenced Dracula, Vlad the Impaler. You could talk about a country, Transylvania. You could talk about, Egyptian curses and the rites that they did upon death to ensure that a pharaoh lives on forever. You can there's so much. You could talk about different countries' customs when it comes to ghosts, or ghost stories, or tall tales, or their urban legends. I'm trying to think of some more. Anywho, there's so much that falls underneath here. Ladies and gentlemen, ghouls and goblins, boys and girls, folks, if you have any questions or concerns about this speech and the requirements, please feel free to reach out to me, and I will get back to you as soon as possible. I hope that you have a spectacular week full of fun, and I cannot wait to hear these speeches. Bye.